Hello everybody, let's talk about f and f prime. The prime changes everything about the question. So it's really important that you understand when you see the f prime symbol what you're looking for. If I ask you a question and I see this graph and this is y equals f of x, and I say which is larger, f of negative 2 or f of negative 1, I believe that you would know that you need to look at the height of the graph. So right here I see that I have my point negative 2 and the y value is f of negative 2. Right here I see that I have my x value negative 1 and my y value f of negative 1. And so by comparing the y values I can see, I don't even have to count grids or anything. Just by comparing the y values I can see that it's definitely true that f of negative 1 is bigger than f of negative 2. Now I ask the same question, but instead of looking for f of x, I'm looking for f prime of x. Remember, f prime of x is the slope of the tangent line, also known as the derivative, also known as the instantaneous rate of change, and if you're dealing with a problem from physics, it's also known as the instantaneous velocity. So in order to figure out f prime of negative 2 and f prime of negative 1, my goal is to draw this tangent line. So that's a pretty decent tangent line for f prime of negative 2. I'm going to draw this tangent line for negative 1 right here. And remember, the slope of these lines are what give you the respective f prime values. So my tangent lines aren't perfect, especially since I'm drawing with a mouse, but they're good enough that I can see enough to answer the question. Based on this, the slope of the tangent line at x equals negative 1 is definitely more positive than the slope of the tangent line at x equals negative 2. So f prime of negative 1 is larger. Which is larger, f of 0 or f prime of 0? Well, in looking at this, I see that f of 0 is definitely a positive number. Right here I say, hey, this is way above the x-axis, so f of 0 is positive. Now what about f prime of 0? Is it positive, negative, 0, or does not exist? If I sketch this tangent line well, I see that the tangent line is pretty flat. In fact, it's completely flat. Certainly it's not a large positive number, and in fact, f prime of 0 is actually equal to 0. So, since positive numbers are bigger than 0, f of 0 is larger. Finally, which is larger, f prime of 1 or f prime of 2? Well, again, to answer this, I have to sketch the tangent lines. And sketching the tangent lines gives me so much information that I want to really be comfortable with doing it. So I've sketched the tangent line to calculate that I would use to calculate f prime of 1 here in blue, and sketch this tangent line at x equals 2 in green. Now here's an interesting thing, and it's slightly confusing to people at first, but it's which of these is larger. When you think about larger, you're thinking about a number. So it's definitely true that the slope of the tangent line at x equals 1 is steeper, but it's negative. So the slope of the tangent line of the blue line is more negative than the slope of the tangent line at the green line. And if you think about large and small in the way we typically think about them in terms of numbers, negative 10,000 is a smaller number than negative 1. So numbers get small, or numbers are smaller the more negative they are. So f prime of 2 would actually be the larger number, even though the slope is not as steep. Okay, great. I hope that answers some questions. If you have more, please let me know.